She was the quiet housekeeper no one noticed, until a cruel joke forced her onto the stage. But when she picked up the violin, and what they heard next changed everything. Welcome, friends. Before we dive into this beautiful story, take a second to hit that like button if you love heartwarming, powerful stories about hidden talent and second chances. Let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories reach. The marble floors of Ravenshaw Conservatory sparkled in the early morning light, thanks in no small part to Elena Ramos. She moved quietly through the grand halls, pushing her cart, mop handle balanced neatly across the top. Her plain blue apron was streaked with polish, her soft shoes silent against the floors she knew better than anyone. Elena had worked here for 7 years, long enough to memorize every crack in the tiles, every creak of the stage floorboards. The students didn't notice her. They swept past her in their tailored blazers, clutching sheet music and expensive instruments, too wrapped up in scales and solos to see the woman who emptied their bins and wiped their practice mirrors. But Elena noticed them. Every night, after the last practice session ended and the last echoes of rehearsal faded, she stayed behind just a little longer. In the empty rooms, where silence hung like a curtain, she would run her fingers across the keys of the old upright piano tucked in the corner of Studio 3. Sometimes, if no one was around, she would hum a little tune she remembered from years ago. Not many people knew this, but once upon a time, Elena Ramos was going to be a concert violinist. That dream had ended in Madrid. One disastrous performance. Her hands froze. The notes disappeared. Her vision blurred. She barely made it off stage before the panic took full hold. She never went back. She packed her violin into its case, moved to London with her daughter, and took the first steady job she could find. Cleaning. Quiet. Invisible. That was safe. But on this particular morning, something was different. The conservatory was buzzing. Students clustered in the hallway outside the recital hall, talking in excited whispers. She's here. In the flesh. Miranda Thornhill. Elena paused, wiping her hands on a cloth. Miranda Thornhill. The name alone sent chills through performers. She was a world-famous violinist, but more than that, a brutal critic. One review from her could end a career. Elena had read her work. Miranda didn't sugarcoat. She sliced. Curious, Elena crept up the side corridor near the back of the auditorium. The door was open just enough for her to slip in. She took a seat in the farthest corner, hoping no one would notice. Inside, students filled the room, instruments on their laps, backs straight. Miranda Thornhill stood at the front, tall and sharp, her silver hair pulled into a sleek twist. Her tailored black suit looked more military than musical. Her voice was crisp, cold. "I'm not here to praise mediocrity," she said. "Play something worth hearing." A student rose to perform. The room held its breath. Elena sat still, notebook clutched to her chest. Not that she needed it. She wouldn't forget this. Then came a giggle from the front row. "Maybe the cleaning lady could play better than that," a student muttered. Laughter followed. Miranda's head turned sharply. Her eyes landed on Elena. "You," she said. Elena froze. "You're the cleaner, yes? Come forward." Elena's mouth opened, then closed. Her heart thudded in her chest. I'm just here to watch," she said quietly. "Then let us watch you," Miranda replied. "Unless, of course, you have nothing to offer." Whispers rippled through the students. One smirked. Another raised an eyebrow. Elena stood slowly. Her knees wobbled. She walked toward the stage like it was a cliff's edge. The lights felt too bright. She didn't want this. But something inside her stirred. The part of her that once held a bow and dreamed of music. As she reached the stage, Miranda gestured toward a violin resting in its velvet case. "Let's see if the cleaning lady still remembers how to play." If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment that might just change your day or your heart. And if this story moves you, we think it will, Share it with someone who needs a little inspiration right now. A friend, a parent, a dreamer. You never know who needs to hear it. Now, get comfy, because this one's special. The stage lights felt hotter than fire. Elena stood frozen, a borrowed violin in her trembling hands, the bow slick against her skin. The grand hall was packed. Students, teachers, even 2 reporters with cameras pointed toward the stage. Every seat was filled, every eye trained on her. At the edge of the stage, Miranda Thornhill folded her arms and waited, her expression unreadable except for the faintest curve of her lips, a smirk. She already thought she knew how this would end. Down in the front row, Jasper, a student known for his talent and his arrogance, leaned toward the girl next to him. "Should have brought her a mop instead," he whispered, chuckling. The girl beside him, Naomi, soft-spoken with kind eyes, shot him a look and said nothing. She sat forward, quietly willing Elena to play. Elena took one shaky breath. Her fingers hovered over the strings. She hadn't held a violin in nearly a decade. Her last performance had ended in disaster. Crippling fear, frozen hands, a shame she couldn't forget. Now, under these harsh lights, the same storm rose in her chest. Her throat tightened, her vision blurred. Her heart pounded so loud she could barely hear. She wanted to run. Her legs tensed. She could step back, leave the stage, return to the comfort of silence, of empty halls, and late-night cleaning. No more eyes, no more judgment. But then something stirred. A memory. Her daughter, young, laughing in their little flat as Elena hummed old Spanish lullabies, her father's hands guiding hers when she first learned to hold a bow. The joy of music before fear took it away. Music isn't about perfection. It's about truth, she remembered her teacher once saying. She closed her eyes and played. The first note was fragile, thin. It wavered in the air like a question she was afraid to ask. A few students smirked. Someone coughed. Then came the next note, stronger, fuller. Then another. Then Elena was no longer on stage. She was 10 years old again, practicing on her grandmother's patio under the orange trees. She was 16, crying after her first competition, not because she lost, but because she felt something so deep it shook her. The music flowed from her like breath. Not flawless, no, but real, raw. It carried years of heartbreak, joy, hope, and silence. Each note told her story. The hall went still. Even Jasper's smug expression faded into something more uncertain. Naomi's eyes sparkled with emotion, her hands pressed together over her heart. Elena swayed gently with the music, her eyes still closed, bowed dancing across the strings. She wasn't just playing, she was remembering. Everything she'd lost, everything she still carried. And then, the last note. Soft, final. A breath held, then released. The hall remained silent. And then, "You stole that interpretation." Miranda Thornhill's voice cut through the quiet, sharp and cold. Gasps rippled through the room. Elena opened her eyes, startled. Miranda stepped forward, her gaze locked on Elena. "That style, those rhythms, that phrasing, it's not taught. It's not from any conservatory." Her voice dropped. "Where did you learn it?" Elena stood tall, hands still resting gently on the violin. Her voice was quiet, steady. "I didn't learn it," she said. "I lived it." Miranda Thornhill stood still, her face pale, her confidence rattled. She opened her mouth, ready to respond, but was interrupted by the soft creak of a seat from the back of the hall. A man stood up slowly. Gray-haired, slightly hunched, dressed in a faded brown blazer and a deep green scarf. He adjusted his round glasses as he made his way toward the stage, cane tapping with each step. Whispers rose. "Is that Dr. Alcott?" "Yes, he's a musicologist. Teaches history of string instruments. He never comes to master classes." Elena blinked in surprise. She recognized the name. Dr. Benedict Alcott, one of the most respected professors in Europe. He'd written books on forgotten folk traditions and lost musical lineages. Dr. Alcott stopped at the front of the room, eyes fixed on Elena. That, he said, voice rich and certain, was Zahara phrasing. Miranda's brow furrowed. "I beg your pardon." "Zahara style," he repeated, a regional violin technique from southern Spain. Nearly impossible to find now. It died out almost a century ago when the oral tradition broke. No one plays like that anymore. He turned to the audience, addressing them all. Except her. Elena's mouth went dry. "My abuelo," she said softly. "He played like that. I used to copy him when I was little." Dr. Alcott smiled. "Of course. That's how it survived. Passed through hands, not books." Then he turned to Miranda. "She's not just a violinist. She's a bridge, a living connection to a forgotten sound, one that no conservatory has preserved, no textbook has captured." Miranda stood frozen. She stepped back and opened her leather folio, flipping through her handwritten notes. Her fingers moved faster now, then stopped. She glanced up and replayed the melody in her mind. She suddenly looked unsure. "I've judged hundreds of performances," she murmured. "I know every major school, Russian, French, American, Viennese. But this..." Her voice trailed off. She looked at Elena again, not with disdain this time, but with awe. This wasn't a performance. It was a voice, older than any of us. In the audience, someone began to clap. It was Naomi. Soft at first, then stronger. Her eyes were damp, her hands proud. Then more joined. Students who had giggled earlier, teachers. Even the two reporters stood, cameras forgotten. Jasper remained seated, his face blank. Then, slowly, he stood too. His hands clapped stiffly at first, then faster, until he, too, was applauding. Elena stood in the center of it all, stunned. The same woman they'd laughed at minutes before now soaked in a wave of applause so honest, it stole her breath. Miranda raised her hand, and the room quieted again. She looked straight at Elena. "I came here," Miranda said slowly, "to teach." She paused, her expression softening into something close to humility. "But today, I was taught." Gasps echoed. Even Dr. Alcott raised his brows. Miranda stepped forward and bowed her head slightly. "Thank you, Miss Ramos, for reminding us what music is meant to be." The sun had dipped low behind the rooftops, painting the London streets in soft orange and gold. A cool breeze swept through the stone arches of Ravenshaw Conservatory, rustling the ivy that climbed its ancient walls. The great hall was empty now. Students had drifted off, still whispering about what they had witnessed. The masterclass was over, but something deeper had just begun. Elena walked slowly through the hallway, the same hallway she had polished 100 times. But today, her apron was folded neatly in her bag. In her hand, instead, she carried a violin case. She moved quietly, almost as if afraid the moment would break if she made too much noise. As she stepped out onto the stone steps, she heard someone call her name. "Elena." It was Mr. Hawthorne, the director of the conservatory. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets, the sun catching the silver in his beard. His eyes were kind, steady. He took a step closer. "I saw everything," he said. "You didn't just play. You lit the room on fire." She lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. "I want you here," he continued, "not to clean, to play, to teach, to share what only you can." Elena blinked, stunned. "But I'm just the housekeeper." Mr. Hawthorne shook his head slowly. "No, Elena, you're the heart of this place. You always have been. We just hadn't opened our ears yet." Her eyes shimmered. No words came. Just a small nod and a breath she hadn't known she'd been holding. He smiled and tipped his head before stepping back inside, leaving her alone on the steps. Elena turned toward the street, her violin tucked under one arm. Her shoes tapped gently on the pavement as she walked. The air smelled like rain and city dust, and something else, something clean, something new. At the corner, a small figure ran up the sidewalk. Mama. Her daughter, Sophia, hair wild and school bag swinging from one arm, leaped into her mother's embrace. "Did they let you play, Mama?" she asked, her voice eager and bright. Elena knelt and wrapped her arms around her tightly. The violin case brushed against her daughter's side. "No, Carino," she whispered with a smile. "They asked me to." Sophia's eyes widened, then sparkled. "I knew you were amazing." Elena laughed softly, pressing her forehead to her daughter's. "You've always known, even when I forgot." They stood together a moment longer, hand in hand, before turning down the street toward home. Back inside the conservatory, the last bit of light poured through the window of practice room 3. A few empty chairs sat scattered across the floor, and the air still held the faint hum of strings. On the whiteboard, scrawled in careful, elegant handwriting, were the words, "Guest artist, Elena Ramos." Just below that, in messier, joyful loops, "My mama makes music." And the room, once silent and still, now carried the quiet, invisible echo of a voice that had finally been heard. Elena's story reminds us that talent doesn't wear a name tag. It doesn't need fancy clothes or polished resumes. Real talent, real art, can live quietly for years, waiting for a moment to speak. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It shines. She was never just a housekeeper. She was an artist, a storyteller, a bridge to a sound the world forgot it needed. And maybe, like Elena, there's something in you, something you've hidden, something afraid to be seen. Let this be your sign. It's never too late. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin. If this story touched your heart, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a little reminder of their own worth. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever hidden a gift the world needs to see? And remember, your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. Until next time, keep believing in quiet brilliance and the beauty of second chances.